Imagine, it's November 1923, Weimar Germany. A loaf of bread costs 200 billion marks. The money sitting in people's bank accounts, what once could buy a house or feed a family, is now worthless. Your life savings could vanish overnight, and most people have no idea it's happening. The system they trusted, the banks, the currency, the government, has failed them. Ordinary citizens wake up to find that what they held dear is now nothing more than paper. And in the chaos, only a few survive. Only a few thrive. Not because they predicted the collapse, but because they followed principles that stand the test of time, principles that protect wealth and life, no matter how deep the crisis runs. Imagine that happening here, today, in a world where most people assume their money, their homes, and their security are safe. It's a reality that has repeated itself across centuries, across continents, and the patterns are always the same. What separates those who survive from those who lose everything is not luck, not intelligence, but a set of timeless financial principles. And in this video, you're going to learn exactly what those principles are and why they matter more than anything else. History has shown us time and again that no system is immune to collapse. In Rome, citizens watched as the currency devalued and empires crumbled. In Weimar Germany, hyperinflation turned millions of marks into worthless paper, wiping out the savings of ordinary families. Argentina in 2001 saw bank accounts frozen and dollar deposits forcibly converted, leaving middle-class citizens impoverished almost overnight. Zimbabwe in the 2000s experienced hyperinflation so extreme that money became meaningless, and people had to rely on basic necessities rather than currency. Across these different countries, different centuries, the same patterns emerge. Currencies fail, banks falter, governments seize control, and paper wealth evaporates. Yet, amid all this chaos, some people survived. Some even thrived. Not because they predicted the collapse, but because they relied on timeless principles that preserve value, security, and life itself. These are not tricks or lucky bets. They are enduring truths, applicable in any crisis, anywhere in the world. And the same principles that saved people in Rome, Germany, Argentina, and Zimbabwe will work if a crisis ever reaches our shores. By the end of this video, you will understand the 5 financial principles that have survived every collapse in recorded history. These are not speculative tips or fleeting strategies. They are fundamental truths that determine who survives and who loses everything when the system fails. Following these principles isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about protecting yourself, your family, and your future from the inevitable shocks that have repeated themselves across centuries. By applying them now, you position yourself to preserve wealth, maintain security, and navigate any financial crisis with clarity and confidence. These principles worked in Rome, in Weimar Germany, in Argentina, and in Zimbabwe, and they will work again. Understanding them is not optional. It's essential if you want to avoid becoming just another casualty of history. The first principle is simple but powerful. Hard, physical assets survive when paper wealth does not. In times of collapse, paper money, bank accounts, and financial claims can evaporate overnight. Look at Weimar Germany in 1923. Those who held hundreds of thousands of marks in the bank woke up to find that money could barely buy a loaf of bread. In Zimbabwe during the 2000s, savings in local currency became completely worthless as hyperinflation spiraled out of control. Even in Argentina in 2001, dollars were forcibly converted to pesos at a rigged rate, instantly erasing a large portion of people's wealth. Yet those who owned tangible assets, land, buildings, gold, or productive property, retained value. A farm still grew food, gold still held worth, and real estate remained real, no matter what happened to the currency. In modern America, most wealth exists as paper, stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, and bank deposits. These are claims, not real assets. In a crisis, these claims can fail. But a piece of land, a farm, or physical gold exists independently of the financial system. Owning these hard assets ensures that no matter what happens, you have value that cannot be erased by inflation, default, or government intervention. The second principle is to focus on productive assets rather than speculative ones. A productive asset generates value on its own, independent of what someone else thinks it's worth. A farm produces food, a bakery produces bread, a rental property provides housing. These assets create real, tangible value. Speculative assets, on the other hand, only have value if someone else is willing to pay more later. Stocks, cryptocurrencies, or certain real estate bought to flip may look valuable on paper, but in a collapse, there may be no buyers at all. History teaches this clearly. During the Great Depression, people who held stocks for speculation lost almost everything when the market crashed. In Venezuela during the 2010s, the stock market briefly soared, but savings tied to speculative assets lost nearly all value when hyperinflation hit. Meanwhile, those who owned farms, bakeries, or essential businesses survived and even thrived because they were producing real goods that people needed. In today's world, much of American wealth is tied to speculative assets. Owning productive assets ensures that no matter how severe a financial crisis becomes, you have something that generates income, feeds your family, and holds real-world value. This is the difference between surviving a collapse and being swept away by it. The third principle is that debt can destroy you in a collapse, even debt that seems manageable in normal times. When the economy is stable, borrowing can feel safe. People take out mortgages, car loans, or student loans, believing their income will cover payments. But in a crisis, income can fall or vanish, and debt obligations remain fixed. History is full of painful examples. During the Great Depression, farmers who had borrowed to expand their land found themselves unable to repay when crop prices collapsed, and over 750,000 farms were foreclosed. In Argentina in 2001, middle-class families with dollar-denominated mortgages watched their incomes drop by 2/3 while their debt stayed the same, leading to widespread foreclosures. In Greece during the 2010s, pension cuts and income losses forced many into default. Today, in America, households carry over $17 trillion in debt, mortgages, auto loans, student loans, and credit cards. In a financial collapse, this debt can quickly become lethal. The only safe position is to eliminate it whenever possible. Owning assets free and clear gives you security and flexibility, while debt chains you to a system that can fail at any moment. In collapse, debt is no longer leverage, it is a trap. The fourth principle is that skills are the only truly portable form of wealth. Unlike money, property, or other assets, skills cannot be taken, frozen, or inflated away. History provides countless examples. During the Holocaust, Jewish families who owned property, businesses, and wealth often lost everything overnight, but those with practical skills, doctors, engineers, craftsmen, were able to survive, work, and rebuild. In the Soviet Union, aristocrats with vast estates lost all of their holdings, while engineers and skilled workers maintained value because the state needed their expertise. Vietnamese refugees in 1975 arrived in new countries with nothing but their knowledge and abilities, and those with skills like medicine, engineering, and trades were the ones who rebuilt successful lives. In modern crises, the same principle applies. Physical assets can be seized, banks can fail, and currencies can collapse, but the ability to produce value with your hands and mind remains yours. Skills like agriculture, mechanical repair, medical care, or any practical trade become your most reliable form of wealth, giving you leverage and survival even when everything else fails. Developing high-value skills ensures that you are prepared for any system, any economy, and any future crisis. The fifth principle is that local trust networks outlast institutions. When banks close, governments fail, or supply chains break down, the relationships you build in your community become more valuable than any currency or contract. History shows this clearly. During the collapse of the Soviet Union, pensions stopped, the currency became worthless, and grocery stores emptied. Yet people who relied on family, neighbors, and local networks survived. In Argentina, in 2001, when banks froze and money lost value, neighborhood assemblies formed to barter, share resources, and provide security. In Lebanon, after 2019, local family and community networks allowed people to navigate extreme financial dysfunction without descending into chaos. Most people today are institutionally connected but locally isolated. They know their bank account numbers, but not their neighbors. Building reciprocal relationships now, knowing your neighbors, trading skills, and helping one another creates a survival infrastructure that cannot be taken away. When institutions fail, it is these networks that determine who survives and who does not. Investing in people and community is as important as investing in assets or skills, because in collapse, trust becomes your most valuable currency. It's important to understand why principles matter more than tactics. Tactics are specific actions. Buy this stock, hold that currency, flip a property. They rely on timing, luck, and circumstances, and they often fail when the system collapses. Principles, on the other hand, are timeless truths. Owning hard assets, focusing on productive resources, eliminating debt, developing skills, and building local networks, these work regardless of when, where, or how a crisis hits. You don't need perfect timing to survive. You don't need to predict the exact day the system will fail. By positioning yourself according to principles, you create resilience and security now and in the future. Even if the collapse comes years from now, these actions will protect you. While others gamble on tactics and lose everything, those who follow principles preserve wealth, maintain safety, and retain options. Principles are not just rules. They are your safeguard against uncertainty, chaos, and the mistakes of most people who wait for certainty that will never come. The reality is that financial systems are fragile, and history shows us that collapses are inevitable. Most people will lose everything because they wait for certainty, hoping that the system will somehow continue to function. But waiting is the most dangerous position you can take. Look at the survivors from history. They acted before the crisis was obvious. They followed principles that preserved their wealth, their safety, and their ability to provide for their families. The rest were left helpless, watching everything they built vanish. You have a choice today. You can ignore these lessons and hope for the best. Or you can position yourself according to proven principles and ensure that you survive, no matter what happens. Acting now doesn't just protect you, it empowers you. It gives you clarity, control, and confidence in a world where uncertainty is the only certainty. Those who prepare will thrive. Those who wait will regret. The difference between them is not luck. It's action guided by timeless truth. If you found this video valuable, make sure to subscribe, because in the next video, we'll go deeper into the specific tactics that align with these principles for today's world. We'll show you which hard assets make the most sense in a digital economy, which productive assets generate real value, how to eliminate debt strategically, which skills are most valuable, and how to build strong local networks even in an isolated society. Remember, principles tell you what to do, tactics tell you how. Following these 5 timeless principles, hard assets survive, debt destroys, skills are portable, productive assets matter, and local trust networks endure, gives you the power to protect your wealth and your life before it's too late. Hard assets survive, debt destroys, skills and networks endure. Position yourself now, because waiting will cost you everything.